Have you ever seen a black cat cross the road at midnight and felt a sudden shiver even though you knew it was just an animal? Have you ever looked into a cat's eyes, silent, watchful, glowing in the dark, and felt like they were hiding a secret not meant for humankind? Have you ever wondered why just a small shadow slipping through a dark alley was enough to make an entire village in the Middle Ages believe the devil was near? Some ancient beliefs never truly disappear. They simply hide quietly in stories, in the cold wind through old forests, or in that sudden glance over your shoulder when you think you're being watched. In 13th century Europe, a time when the only light at night came from flickering candles or campfires deep in the woods, people lived with constant fear. Fear of the dark, fear of disease, fear of witches, and especially fear of cats. Not all cats were hated, but if it was a black cat seen with an old lonely woman who wandered near the graveyard at night, the villagers wouldn't just whisper behind her back. They'd come with torches, with sticks, and with prayers, ready to ignite a cleansing they believed was necessary. But why? Why would a cat, small, silent, and wise, become a symbol of evil, of curses, of blood and fire? Why did people believe that cats were loyal servants to witches, the eyes of demons in the night, the wandering spirits caught between two worlds? And was it all just superstition, or is there a seed of truth buried beneath the dust of history? Sit down, listen closely, and don't take your eyes off the shadow in the corner of the room, because this story begins in a village gripped by frost, with a missing child and a black cat sitting still beneath the blood-red moon. Part 1. When the black cat slipped. Quietly through the gates of hell, the wind howled through the cracks of wooden shutters, moaning like distant wails drifting in from the village cemetery. In a crumbling, thatch-roof cottage at the edge of an ancient oak forest, a flickering candle cast trembling shadows across the worn face of a widowed woman. She lived alone, shunned by the villagers, speaking to no one. Her only companion was a black cat with eyes like burning coals. Every night, that cat would slip out through the open window and vanish into the woods, silent as breath. They said it carried her soul to meet the devil. To live in 13th century Europe was to live in fear, not only of hunger or war, but of the unseen forces people believed stalked them in the dark. If a black cat crossed your path at dusk, your skin would prickle not just from superstition, but from a bone-deep certainty that evil had just passed by. Not because the creature had claws or fangs, but because across England and France, Italy and the Germanic lands, black cats were seen as more than animals. They were said to be witches in disguise, demons in furry skin, Satan's spies. People whispered that cats could see things hidden from human eyes, that their gaze pierced through veils of reality. They moved without a sound, gliding like smoke, blinking with otherworldly calm. And in a time when mystery was terrifying, when whatever couldn't be explained was often branded as witchcraft, cats, especially black ones, became living emblems of fear. It's strange to think that just centuries earlier, in ancient Egypt, cats were adored as divine beings. Bastet, the feline-headed goddess of home, protection, and fertility, was worshipped in temples and homes. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was a capital crime. They were mummified, honored, even buried in tombs beside their masters. To the Egyptians, cats were life itself. But in medieval Europe, that reverence turned inside out. As Christianity spread through the continent, old symbols of pagan belief were recast as evil. What had once represented light, fertility, and the feminine became suspect. God was now male, the world was fallen, and anything associated with nature's wildness, especially women, animals, the moon, was suspect. Cats had been linked to goddesses, to sacred femininity, to freedom. And in the eyes of the church, that made them dangerous. It didn't help that cats defied obedience. In a society built on hierarchy and submission, cats couldn't be controlled. They didn't guard, didn't plow, didn't serve. They came and went as they pleased. They slept all day and came alive when darkness fell. Just like the witches everyone feared gathered at midnight, under full moons, chanting spells no one dared speak aloud. Villagers claimed to have seen black cats leap over coffins just before the deceased was buried. They told of infants who fell sick after cats sat too long watching them. Some said the devil's mark, an extra nipple witches were believed to use to nurse their demon familiars, was often found near where a cat would lie curled on their mistress's lap. The medieval mind didn't ask for proof. It trusted the hush of gossip and the cold logic of coincidence. And the cat was always there, in the dream, in the shadow, in the death. Tales spread quickly across Europe. Witches could turn themselves into cats, some said. Others believed they sent cats to steal souls or poison wells. There were court records, real ones, where accused women were said to have called to their familiars in whispers, and a cat appeared at the door within moments. In some stories, the devil himself took the form of a black cat to walk among mortals unseen. The line between myth and reality blurred until fear made it real. In 1233, Pope Gregory IX issued the decree Vox in Rama, a chilling document that may have sealed the fate of cats in the Christian world. In it, he described a satanic cult that allegedly worshipped the devil in the form of a black cat. During their rituals, initiates would kiss the cat's backside, pledging allegiance to Lucifer. Whether the story was fabricated or not hardly mattered. The decree came from Rome, and that made it truth. Suddenly, black cats were no longer just suspicious, they were heretical, they were damned, and so were the women who kept them. All across rural Europe, a slow, cruel hunt began. Women who lived alone, widows, herbalists, midwives, were the first to be accused. Often, their only crime was owning a cat. In trial after trial, the presence of a feline companion was used as evidence of sorcery. Some were burned alive, some hanged. In many cases, the cats were executed too, strangled, stoned, or tossed into fires. It was a bitter irony that in killing the cats, people opened the door to one of the deadliest events in history, the Black Death. With their feline defenders gone, rats spread unchecked through towns and cities. Fleas carried on their backs a plague that would kill over a third of Europe. But the cat was blamed, not mourned. After all, they'd always been symbols of death, hadn't they? Yet somehow the cats survived. They always do. They kept walking the roofs of sleeping villages, slinking through alleyways, curling into shadows. Their gaze remained steady, unafraid. And maybe that's why we're still so enchanted by them. They never bowed, never broke. They walked through hell and back and came out unchanged. In the Middle Ages, a time of fear, fire, and fanaticism, cats weren't just animals. They were mirrors. They reflected everything people couldn't control: nature, womanhood, independence, the unknown. They were punished not for evil deeds, but for being what others feared most: free. So if, one evening, you see a black cat slip silently across your path and your breath catches in your chest, maybe it's not superstition. Maybe it's memory, some deep echo from a time when people believed that within that graceful, quiet creature lived the whisper of something powerful, untamed, and ancient. And maybe they were right. Part 2, Whispers in the Smoke. The trials begin. The town square smelled of ash and fear. Beneath the wooden platform, a crowd had gathered. Faces hard, eyes hollow, hands clenched, not in justice, but in anticipation. Somewhere among them, a child clutched her mother's skirts and whispered, "Is she a witch, Mama?" The woman did not answer. Her eyes were fixed on the figure tied to the post and on the small black cat that sat quietly at her feet. It didn't cry. It didn't run. It simply stared. The flames hadn't been lit yet, but the accusations were already burning through Europe. The 14th and 15th centuries saw a transformation, a shift from quiet fear to violent action. Superstition was no longer a private whisper between neighbors. It became law. It became doctrine. It took root in the courts, in the pulpit, in the royal decrees of kings who feared the invisible more than the armies at their gates. And at the heart of this dark paranoia stood two figures: the woman who knew too much and the cat who never looked away. The witch hunts didn't begin with fire. They began with hunger, sickness, and war. When crops failed, it was easier to blame the old woman in the hills than the drought. When babies died in their cribs, it felt safer to call it a curse than to face the helplessness of nature. Misfortune demanded a scapegoat. And what better scapegoat than the woman who didn't go to church, who grew herbs no one else understood, who talked to animals when she thought no one was listening? The church and the state began to formalize the fear. Clergymen preached that Satan walked among them in disguise. Any woman who deviated from the narrow expectations of obedience, purity, and silence could be suspect. But suspicion alone wasn't enough. People needed proof, something tangible, something they could see. And that's when the cat reappeared. If a woman had a black cat, that cat was no longer simply a pet. It was now a familiar, a demon sent by the devil to do her bidding. The Inquisition took this idea seriously, deadly seriously. Confessions extracted under torture told stories of witches suckling cats from secret teats, or sending them out to do harm under the cover of darkness. In some records, the cat was said to whisper forbidden knowledge. In others, it transformed into a man with hooves. The imagination of fear is limitless. During the infamous witch trials of the late Middle Ages, spreading from Germany to France, England to Switzerland, the presence of a cat was often considered enough evidence to condemn someone. No need for a witness, no need for a crime, just the animal and the assumption that it meant something dark. In 1486, a book was published that would pour gasoline on centuries of fear. Malleus Maleficarum, The Hammer of Witches, written by two German inquisitors, became the handbook for hunting witches. It laid out how to identify them, how to try them, how to destroy them. Within its pages, cats appeared again and again, not as animals, but as agents of the devil. They were extensions of the witch's will, her secret weapon, her lover, her spy. The book was so popular, second only to the Bible in some parts of Europe, that its twisted logic became common sense. And so the fires spread. In a small Scottish village, an elderly woman was found with 3 cats and a dried sprig of belladonna. She was accused of poisoning the cattle. She was drowned in the river while the villagers stoned her animals. In southern France, a young girl was said to turn into a tabby at night and run across rooftops. Her entire family was burned. In Bavaria, a bishop declared that every woman who slept beside a cat would bring misfortune to her house and her soul. No one was safe. The more someone denied guilt, the more suspicious they became. Silence was an admission. Screaming was proof. And still, the cats did not flee. They stayed close, as they always had, because for centuries before the madness, cats were part of life in the village. They kept barns free of mice. They slept at the foot of beds. They roamed kitchens and courtyards. But now even that memory was poisoned. The people forgot the comfort, the purring warmth by the fire. All they could see was the threat. There's something chilling in old trial transcripts. Not just the cruelty, but the precision. Names are listed, dates, testimonies. You can almost hear the quill scratching on parchment as a judge records a confession made through broken teeth and bloodied lips. She fed the cat milk from her breast, and the creature spoke to her in a tongue not known to man. Truth was no longer the goal. Control was. Control of women, control of nature, control of anything that challenged the strict, fragile order of the world. And cats, wild, feminine, unpredictable, were everything the system could not cage. And yet, there were cracks in the fear. Some whispered of midwives who still hid tabby kittens under their cloaks, swearing they brought luck during childbirth. Sailors, hardened and unholy, brought cats aboard ships to keep rats at bay, and always saluted a black cat before a voyage. In some villages, old beliefs refused to die. Children still made little offerings of milk. Farmers still left bowls by barn doors just in case. Love and terror lived side by side. But by the late 1400s, tens of thousands of women had been killed across Europe. And how many cats died with them? No one kept record of that. No one counted the eyes that had watched, the paws that had padded silently down stone corridors before the door was locked, the final fire lit. What remains now are the stories, the shadows, the shiver that runs down your spine when a cat sits still too long, staring at something you can't see. They say you can't put a chain on a cat. That may be why they were hated and why they survived. Part 3, Across the Ocean. Shadows followed to the New World. The Atlantic was vast, cruel, and unknown. The ships that crossed it creaked like coffins, carrying dreams, fear, and an old world's ghost packed into barrels and prayer books. The Puritans who settled in the American colonies didn't leave their fears behind. They brought them, tightly stitched into their theology, their customs, and their silence. They also brought the old suspicion, the same one that whispered back in the alleys of England and the woods of Germany. The belief that evil had a face, a form, that Satan moved through the world, not as a dragon, but as a woman with a cat on her shoulder. It's no surprise, then, that when the witch trials ignited in Salem, Massachusetts, in 1692, the image of the cat was never far from the fire. But this time, it wasn't only about superstition, it was about survival. The colonies were still fragile, wild, full of danger, disease, raids, harsh winters, starvation. Death came fast and often without explanation. And when the world spun out of control, people reached for anything that made it feel ordered again, even if that order came through blood. In Puritan belief, the devil was no metaphor. He was real, walking, working, a constant, daily threat. Anything that challenged religious authority, especially women who spoke boldly or acted independently, was dangerous. And what followed those women? The old symbol, the quiet animal, the watcher in the dark, the black cat. In Salem, records from the trials include references to animals acting strangely or appearing in dreams. One accused woman was said to keep a great black cat that guarded her doorway. Another was charged with transforming into a feline to attack her neighbor's child. And as before, the cat was never just a cat. It was a vessel, a messenger, a shapeshifter, a sign. In colonial superstition, cats, especially black ones, could cross into other realms. They were thought to be immune to poison, to see spirits, to walk between life and death. These weren't just folktales. They were quietly believed by many, and those beliefs were enough to destroy lives. 17 people were hanged during the Salem witch trials. One man was pressed to death under heavy stones. Over 200 were accused, and while cats were not the center of the hysteria, they hovered at the edge of every whispered accusation, always just out of reach, like a shadow in the cornfield, a movement at the corner of the eye. But something else was happening too. Across the colonies, practical needs clashed with spiritual fear. Farmers knew that without cats, rats and mice could ruin a winter's food supply. Sailors refused to leave harbor without one aboard, believing a cat's mood could predict storms. In port towns and mountain villages, the cat was still both feared and fed. In the South, some enslaved Africans brought with them their own beliefs. Legends that saw the black cat not as a devil's creature, but as a spirit guardian. In Hoodoo and early folk traditions, a black cat bone was believed to grant invisibility or protection. These stories existed quietly alongside the Puritan nightmares, forming a tapestry of conflicting meanings. A black cat in one town might be seen as cursed, in the next, sacred. Even literature began to change the story. In the 1700s and 1800s, writers started using cats as symbols of mystery and intelligence, not just evil. Edgar Allan Poe's tale, The Black Cat, twisted the image into psychological horror. Yes, but it was layered. It wasn't just about witchcraft anymore. It was about guilt, madness, the darkness within ourselves. And as rationalism grew, as science began to challenge religion, the witch hunts died down. Slowly, the world moved on. But the cat remained. By now, the damage was done. The black cat had been soaked in centuries of fear. It would never again be just an animal. It was a symbol, loaded and misunderstood. Even into the 20th century, some towns in Europe and America still drowned cats on certain holy days to cleanse evil. Even now, some shelters won't allow black cats to be adopted near Halloween, afraid of what people might do to them. And yet, despite all this, the cat survived. Maybe that's the truest magic, because even when tied to terror, even when blamed for plague, fire, death, and war, the cat never stopped watching, never stopped walking on silent paws through the ruins of fear and ignorance. It has always known something we forgot, that mystery isn't evil, that darkness doesn't always mean danger, that sometimes what we fear most is what we fail to understand. Part 4, The Cat in Modern Superstition, From Bad Luck to Halloween Icon. The world had changed. Cities rose from the ashes of superstition, science advanced, and the shadows of the witch trials faded into dusty court records and history books. But one shadow lingered, silent, graceful, with slit eyes that glowed like candlelight and fur that disappeared into midnight. The cat. More specifically, the black cat. It followed us into the modern age not as a hunter or a guardian of grain, but as a symbol woven into everyday superstitions and folklore. In some ways, the fear softened. In others, it simply changed its mask. Even today, step into a quiet neighborhood, and you might still hear someone say it. If a black cat crosses your path, bad luck will follow. Where did that idea come from? Why, after centuries, does this belief still haunt us? The roots, as always, lie deep. The idea that black cats bring misfortune wasn't born in the modern world. It was inherited, shaped by medieval fear, religious zealotry, and centuries of storytelling. In medieval Europe, the black cat was seen as a creature of the night, moving with unnatural silence, often appearing when something terrible was about to happen. And because night itself was associated with evil, so too was the animal that seemed to command it. When disease struck or crops failed, people wanted something, someone to blame. And the black cat, linked to the devil and the women accused of serving him, became a convenient scapegoat. But in the modern era, these beliefs became subtler. They no longer ended in trials and gallows, but they lingered in whispers, in glances, in stories told to children around Halloween fires. In America, the image of the black cat began to evolve during the 19th and early 20th centuries, when Halloween transformed from a night of real superstition into a holiday of costumes, candy, and spooky fun. But the iconography kept its roots. The witch, now a cartoon figure with a crooked hat, still had her loyal companion curled at her feet. A black cat, eyes wide, claws ready. Shops filled with decorations of archback cats and glowing moons. Postcards featured black cats perching on pumpkins, dancing under stars, or flying side by side with broomstick riders. The fear, once deadly, had become decorative. But not everyone laughed. Even into the 21st century, superstitions remain oddly persistent. Studies have shown that black cats are adopted from shelters less frequently than their lighter-colored counterparts. In some places, they're still believed to bring misfortune, particularly on Friday the 13th. A quick internet search will show you how deep this goes. Lists of bad omens almost always include the black cat. Don't let it cross your path. Don't let it into your home. Don't look into its eyes at midnight. The warnings remain, even if we no longer believe them with the same fear. But here's the twist. Not all cultures see the black cat as a sign of doom. In Japan, for example, black cats are believed to bring good luck, especially to single women, as they're thought to attract kind, respectful suitors. In Scotland, a black cat appearing on your doorstep is seen as a sign of prosperity. In ancient Egypt, cats of all kinds were once sacred, protectors of the home and symbols of the goddess Bastet. It turns out, what we believe about a creature often says more about us than it does about the creature itself. Some see mystery and call it danger. Others see mystery and call it wonder. And perhaps that's the lesson the black cat has carried across centuries of fire, fear, and folklore. That not everything dark is to be feared, and not everything silent is sinister. So the next time a black cat crosses your path, ask yourself, is it bringing bad luck? Or is it watching over you, quietly as it always has? Part 5, From Familiar to Family. How the black cat found a home again. It didn't happen all at once. There was no loud declaration, no breaking of a spell. The black cat didn't suddenly stop being feared. It simply waited, as it always had, through centuries of suspicion, myth, and misunderstanding. And slowly it was welcomed back, not as a witch's familiar, not as a symbol of evil, but as family. It's a quiet redemption story, really. The kind that doesn't make headlines but leaves a mark in living rooms and kitchen windows, in soft paw prints across bed sheets, in purrs at midnight. In the quiet, patient way the cat has always moved through our lives. The shift began as society changed, as cities grew and religion relaxed its grip on daily life, as science chipped away at superstition. People began to look at animals differently. They were no longer just tools or omens. They were companions, creatures with feelings, personalities, needs. And the cat, aloof, mysterious, often misunderstood, slowly proved itself to be more than a shadow. It was a comfort, a presence, a quiet watcher of human sorrow and joy alike. Black cats especially began to appear in homes again. Artists loved them. Writers were drawn to their silence. Women living alone, once the very people accused of witchcraft, found in them a gentle, wordless solidarity. The black cat became a kind of quiet rebellion against old fears, a way to say, I see the beauty in what others once called dangerous. In the 20th century, the shift became more visible. Hollywood gave us cats as sidekicks, not monsters. Cartoons turned them into charming mischief makers. Halloween still featured the archback black cat, but now it smiled on candy wrappers and danced in store windows. Still mysterious, yes, but the terror had softened into nostalgia. Then came the internet, and with it, a strange twist. The black cat, once hunted and hated, became a meme, a star, a source of delight. Millions of people across the globe now shared photos of their black-furred companions, celebrating their elegance, their goofiness, their glowing eyes. Hashtags like #Black Cat Appreciation Day began to trend. The same cultures that once feared the black cat now posted videos of them knocking cups off tables and laughed. And perhaps that's the greatest irony of all. The very thing once accused of serving witches has become the emotional support animal of a tired digital world. But the cat hasn't changed. It still walks softly in the dark, still watches from windows, still curls itself around your ankles when you're sad, and disappears for hours when you need space. It doesn't beg. It doesn't plead. It simply stays if you let it. The black cat, more than any other, carries centuries in its fur. When you look into its eyes, you aren't just seeing an animal. You're seeing echoes of fires burned, of names whispered, of nights filled with fear and wonder. But now it climbs into your lap. It naps on your books. It reminds you, in its own quiet way, that healing can happen slowly, that even the most feared things can be loved again. That mystery, once welcomed, becomes magic, not of spells and potions, but of soft warmth and steady presence. So if you find yourself alone one night and a black cat sits beside you, don't be afraid. It has walked through history to reach you, not to haunt, but to stay. Part 6. The Cat's Resilience. How the black cat became a symbol of mystery and freedom. The black cat, often seen as the creature of darkness, has a unique power. It holds within it the secrets of time itself. And as much as people tried to shape its destiny with fear and suspicion, the cat, true to its nature, found a way to carve out a path of its own. A quiet, unspoken resilience. A reminder that even in the most challenging of times, the spirit of survival, mystery, and freedom is always present. In the modern world, the black cat represents something far more than it ever did in the past. It is no longer simply an omen of misfortune or a witch's companion. It has evolved into a symbol of resilience and independence. Its quiet gaze, often mysterious, speaks of survival, of a creature that has weathered centuries of fear, superstition, and prejudice, only to emerge stronger. The world around us has changed. We no longer live in a time when the very sight of a black cat crossing our path could mean death or misfortune. But in many ways, the cat still carries with it the echoes of those fears. It is a reminder of how we, as human beings, can project our own insecurities and fears onto the unknown. And yet the black cat does not shrink away from these projections. It stands tall, unafraid, and proud. The modern cat is a paradox. It exists between two worlds, one where superstition still lingers, and another where the cat has become a beloved companion. People have come to understand that the black cat, much like any other, is just an animal. But even in that understanding, something still persists, something intangible that connects us to the cat, and the mystery it carries within its very essence. In literature, the black cat has been a symbol of freedom, rebellion, and strength. From Edgar Allan Poe's haunting tale, The Black Cat, to the enchanting presence of black cats in folklore, The creature's role has always been complex. It is both a figure of shadow and light, of terror and grace. In the hands of writers, the cat becomes a vessel for exploring the human psyche, for understanding the darkness within us all. It is a reflection of our fears, but also of our capacity for resilience and growth. It's no wonder that in today's world, we still find the black cat at the center of Halloween imagery. But in modern celebrations, it is no longer a creature of pure evil. It is often depicted with a certain charm and elegance. The cat, once a symbol of malice, is now part of the mystical aura that surrounds Halloween. It embodies the mystery of the night, the magic of transformation, and the beauty of the unknown. But beyond Halloween, black cats have found a special place in our hearts. They are adopted as pets, loved for their beauty and personality. Many see them as companions who, despite their aloof nature, bring comfort, joy, and sometimes even a sense of magic to their homes. There's something about their presence that feels both ancient and timeless, like they carry with them the knowledge of generations past. There's an undeniable allure to the black cat, something that draws us in, even when we know little about its past. It's as if the cat is an enigma wrapped in fur, offering us a glimpse into something deeper, something older than time itself. Its gaze, intense and unyielding, invites us to consider the mysteries of the universe, to reflect on our own fears and desires, and to acknowledge the magic that exists in the everyday world. And perhaps that's why the black cat is so enduring. It is a creature of paradox, a symbol of both the darkness we fear and the freedom we long for. It reminds us that there is power in mystery, strength in silence, and beauty in the unknown. As we continue to live our lives, we can take a lesson from the black cat. In the face of adversity, in the midst of fear, it has always stood tall. And maybe, just maybe, we can do the same. Epilogue: the lasting legacy of the black cat, from fear to reverence. The black cat, having traversed through centuries of superstition, fear, and legend, remains a figure of both fascination and affection today. Its journey from being an agent of darkness in the medieval mind to becoming a beloved companion in modern households is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the creature and the power of our evolving perceptions. Once a symbol of witchcraft, a silent partner in the realm of the occult, the black cat was thought to possess secrets and powers beyond human comprehension. It was feared, persecuted, and misunderstood. In times of social upheaval and religious fervor, it was blamed for misfortune, tied to those who dared to challenge the norms of society. But through all this, the black cat endured, never losing its silent, graceful presence in our midst. As the world changed, so too did the perception of the black cat. No longer the harbinger of doom or the servant of witches, the black cat has reclaimed its rightful place in the hearts of many as a symbol of mystery, independence, and grace. It is now embraced as a companion, a member of the family, an animal whose beauty and quiet strength resonate deeply with those who understand the depth of its history. The myths and fears of the past still echo, but they no longer define the black cat. Instead, it is viewed with a sense of awe and respect as a creature that has survived centuries of misconception and persecution. It has become more than just a pet. It is a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, one can survive and thrive. And as we continue to live our lives, perhaps there is something we can learn from the black cat. Its mysterious allure, its quiet strength, its ability to adapt to the changing tides of history. These are qualities we can admire and strive to embody in our own lives. Like the black cat, we too can navigate the shadows and light of life with grace and resilience. So the next time a black cat crosses your path, remember its journey. Remember the trials it has faced, the legends it has carried, and the strength it embodies. And perhaps in that moment, you'll see more than just a cat. You'll see a symbol of survival, mystery, and transformation. The black cat is no longer a servant of darkness. It is a creature of light, a reminder of the enduring power of freedom, resilience, and love. And